Workers are often exposed to various airborne contaminants generated by processes in their work environment. These contaminants can be of different types and concentrations. Since using good ventilation or substitution for another chemical may not be possible, work in these environments may necessitate the use of respiratory protective equipment. This video will provide basic information that will help you understand, select, fit, and maintain air purifying respirators. In New Brunswick, Regulation 91-191, Sections 45 to 47 set requirements for the use of respirators. The regulation requires employers to establish a written code of practice in compliance with CSA Standard Z94.4-93, entitled Selection, Use, and Care of Respirators. The standard spells out the requirements for establishing a code of practice dealing with respirators. The use of a respirator is required when contaminant concentrations are above the legislated maximum permissible levels, or when required by the employer. Workers may choose to wear a respirator when contaminants are below the legislated maximum permissible levels to further reduce their exposure. Respirators are an important part of personal protection in the place of employment. They are used to prevent air contaminants from entering and damaging the lungs or being transported by the blood to other organs. Respirators are considered to be a last resort for controlling worker exposure to airborne contaminants. Respirators should be required only after ventilation and other engineering controls are not able to lower air contaminant concentrations below the maximum permissible level. Respirators may also be necessary during a plant shutdown for maintenance or repair when engineering controls are not operating. There are two main classes of respirators. The first class is air-supplied respirators, where air is either supplied to the respirator by a pump located outside the contaminated area or supplied to the respirator by a compressed air cylinder. This is commonly used by firefighters. The second class is air purifying respirators, which will be discussed in this video. Air purifying respirators are designed to filter contaminated air using different filtering media specific to the contaminants. There are many makes and models of air purifying respirators which can be grouped into two major types. They are disposable respirators and reusable respirators. Both are negative pressure respirators. This means that as the worker inhales, the pressure inside the respirator becomes negative compared to the air pressure outside. There are severe limitations to the use of air purifying respirators. These respirators must not be worn when the conditions are immediately dangerous to life and health, the contaminant concentrations are unknown, or when the contaminant concentrations exceed 10 times the allowable exposure limit. These respirators do not supply oxygen, so do not use them when the oxygen level is below 19.5%. Air purifying respirators should only be worn for protection against contaminants that can be detected by smell, taste, or irritation. This ensures that if the contaminants break through the respirator, the user will know right away. The exposure must stop and the respirator checked if the air contaminants break through. Wearing a respirator is physically demanding. A worker may not be able to wear a respirator because of a medical condition, and a medical checkup may be required. The physical examination will determine if the worker is fit to wear the respirator. The physician performing the examination should be knowledgeable about the work conditions, and the type of respirator that will be worn. Before selecting a respirator, the hazards must be identified. This is an essential step to ensure the safety of the user. A wrong respirator would provide a false sense of security and could be dangerous. The airborne hazards in a workplace could be dust, fumes, mists, gases, vapors, or a combination. The Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS, is a valuable source of information on airborne contaminants from products used in the workplace. Under WMIS legislation, MSDSs must be provided for most of the hazardous products used in the workplace. An additional factor to consider is irritation of the eyes. If the contaminants are irritating, a full-face respirator may be necessary. The airborne contaminants that have been identified must then be measured using appropriate sampling equipment. Once the contaminants have been identified and their concentrations determined, a respirator that is adequate for the job can be selected. The CSA standard referred to earlier is an excellent source of information for the selection of respirators. Only disposable or reusable respirators that have been approved by the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, known as NIOSH, or an equivalent, can be used in New Brunswick. An approved respirator ensures that the user is provided with adequate protection if used properly. When a respirator is approved by NIOSH, an approval number is issued. In most cases, the number and the approval stamp are printed on the side of the respirator box. The NIOSH stamp is also shown on the disposable respirators and on the filtering cartridges of reusable respirators. New Brunswick employers are required to provide training to workers who are using, issuing, testing, or maintaining respirators. Every worker required to wear a respirator must be trained on an annual basis. The training program should cover the types of hazards and their effects on the body, the operation and limitations of the respirator, and the procedures for the respirator use and maintenance. Disposable respirators are commonly used for protection against particulates such as dust, fumes, and mist. There are many makes and models of disposable respirators. Some models have an exhalation valve. All will have double straps, either adjustable or not. The NIOSH-approved N95 is the most commonly used particulate respirator in the workplace. The N stands for no oil resistance, while the 95 specifies the percentage efficiency to small dust particles. If the workplace has airborne oil mist, then a P or R series respirator would be more appropriate. The P stands for oil-proof. The R stands for oil-resistant. Better efficiency respirators such as 99 or 100 are available in N, R, or P oil-resistant series. Their selection depends on the work hazards that must be identified and measured prior to the selection. The proper donning of this type of respirator is essential to ensure adequate protection from airborne contaminants. Workers who are required to wear a respirator in New Brunswick must by regulation be as clean-shaven as necessary to ensure an effective facial seal. If a facial condition prevents the respirator from seating properly on the face, air may leak around the respirator and not be filtered before reaching the lungs. If this occurs, the respirator must not be used until a proper seal is obtained. If the respirator has adjustable straps, start by running the straps through the buckles. Then hold the respirator in your hand with the nose piece at your fingertips, allowing the strap to hang freely below your hand. Position the respirator under your chin with the nose piece up. Pull the bottom strap over your head and position it around your neck below your ears. Pull the top strap over your head, resting it high at the top back of your head. Make sure the straps are not twisted. Adjust the strap tension by pulling the straps as shown. Now, place the fingertips of both hands at the top of the middle nose piece. Using two hands, mold the nose clip to the shape of your nose by pushing down on both sides. Using one hand may result in improper fit and less effective respirator performance. It is essential to wear both straps. Using only the top strap will allow air contaminants to enter around the bottom of the respirator, seriously compromising your protection. After donning a disposable respirator, it is very important to carry out a field check before entering a contaminated area. The field check will let the wearer know if the respirator has a proper seal around the face. For a disposable respirator without an exhalation valve, place both hands over the respirator and exhale. The respirator should bulge slightly. If air leaks around the nose, readjust the nose piece. If the respirator leaks around the edges, work the straps back along the sides of your head or tighten the straps if they are adjustable. Repeat the checks if needed. For a disposable respirator with a valve, place both hands over the respirator and inhale sharply. The respirator should collapse slightly. If air leaks around the nose, readjust the nose piece. If it leaks around the edges of the respirator, work the straps back along the sides of your head or tighten the straps if they are adjustable. Repeat the procedure if necessary. A respirator that does not fit well should not be worn because it will not give the proper protection. A disposable respirator should be discarded if it is spoiled, shows any damage, or if breathing becomes difficult. The inside of the respirator should be clean at all times. Make sure to store a disposable respirator in a clean area if it is to be reused. A sealed plastic bag is perfect for that purpose. It is recommended to read the donning and field check instructions that are included with each box of disposable respirators. Reusable respirators are usually made of molded plastics. All of these respirators are fitted with an exhalation valve. This type of respirator can either be a half-face type, covering the mouth and nose, or can be a full-face type protecting the eyes. The full-face respirator should be used when air contaminants are irritating to the eyes. Reusable respirators have to be fitted with filter cartridges that are selected for the type of contaminants that have been identified in the workplace. Particulate cartridges are made with special fabrics to filter most aerosols such as dust, fumes, and mist. Chemical filtering cartridges use sorbent material and are most commonly available for organic vapors, acid gases, and formaldehyde. A wider selection is available from your respirator supplier. When aerosols are also present, chemical cartridges can be fitted with a pre-filter. The respirator will then have a dual function. Between uses, the respirator should be stored to protect it against airborne contaminants. The easiest way is to store the respirator in a sealed plastic bag. Most chemical cartridges contain activated charcoal. If the respirator is left in the atmosphere, it will continue to work by absorbing humidity or chemical vapors, reducing the life expectancy of the cartridges. The top of the workbench is the worst place to store your respirator. Cartridges should be replaced according to the manufacturer's instructions, the employer's policy, or as soon as you smell, taste, or feel any irritation. The proper donning of a reusable respirator is also essential to ensure adequate protection from the hazards. Workers required to wear this type of respirator in New Brunswick are required by regulation to be as clean-shaven as necessary to ensure an effective facial seal. A careful check of the respirator should be carried out before donning. First, check to see if the valves are in place and well seated. Check the body for cracks or signs of damage. Then, check the straps for damage or signs of overstretching. The respirator should not be worn if any of these items are damaged or missing. It should be either repaired or replaced. Before donning the respirator, place the straps through the buckles for easy adjustment. Place the respirator on your nose and mouth, and place the head harness on top of your head. Position the respirator low on your nose bridge to get the best possible visibility. Grab the lower straps and tie them behind your head. Tighten the straps by pulling on the loose ends, starting with the top straps, and terminate with the bottom straps. Avoid over-tightening the straps. Before entering an area where airborne contaminants are present, a field check must be performed. Start with a positive field check. Place the palm of your hand on the exhalation valve, being careful not to apply too much pressure as to break the facial seal. Gently exhale. If the respirator slightly bulges, without detecting a leak between the respirator and your face, the adjustment is fine. Next, perform a negative field check. Place the palms of both hands flat against the open area of the cartridges. Again, be careful not to apply too much pressure. Inhale gently. If the respirator slightly collapses and you do not detect any leak between your face and the respirator, the seal is good. If you detect a leak while carrying out the positive or the negative check, reposition the respirator on your face and readjust the strap's tension. Repeat the test. If you can't get a proper seal, consult with your supervisor. A different respirator may be required. To remove the respirator, undo the lower straps first, and then remove the head harness. This type of respirator must be cleaned on a regular basis. Commercial respirator wipes can be used. However, they must not be the only method in place. After first removing the cartridges and filters, the preferred method is to wash the respirator in warm water containing a mild soap. The water temperature should not exceed 50 degrees Celsius. Scrub the respirator with a soft, bristle brush. Do not use organic solvents such as thinner, acetone, or turpentine because they would damage the respirator. Rinse the respirator and let it dry in a non-contaminated area. A competent person must carry out qualitative or quantitative fit testing when a respirator is first assigned to a worker, and then annually to ensure proper fit. The test should be repeated whenever the work conditions necessitate a change in the type of respirator worn. Qualitative fit testing is a simple pass or fail test that relies on an individual's response to an airborne test agent. Except when irritating smoke is used, the test agent is in most cases released inside a hood or an enclosure while the test subject wears the respirator. If the worker cannot detect any penetration of the test agent into the respirator, then it is assumed that the respirator seal on the worker's face is acceptable. This is a subjective test which relies on the ability of the test subject to smell or taste the test agent. Qualitative fit testing equipment should be available from your respirator supplier. Quantitative fit testing is performed by numerically measuring the amount of leakage of a test agent into the respirator and comparing the concentration inside the respirator to the concentration outside the respirator. During the quantitative fit test, the employee performs a series of exercises designed to simulate work movements. Appropriate instrumentation is necessary to quantify the respirator fit. Always remember that the fit test is only used to evaluate the effectiveness of the respirator seal on the worker's face. The fit test has nothing to do with the ability of the respirator to remove airborne hazards. This video has addressed the use of air purifying respirators in your workplace and has identified what must be done to ensure an adequate respirator program. Firstly, the respirator has to be carefully selected according to the type and concentration of air contaminants that are present. Secondly, proper training in the wearing and maintaining of a respirator is necessary to ensure a successful respirator program in your workplace. Thirdly, the worker must don and fit the respirator correctly for proper protection. And finally, a good maintenance program must be in place to ensure the respirators are clean and in proper working condition.